Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered. Now, this week we're joined by a lady who went through a tragic situation and is now on a mission to try and change the law in the UK. When it comes around to duty of care, it's Susan. Hi, Susan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, you all right?
You're not too bad. Before we get into your story, we've just got a couple of get-to-know-you questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, go on then.
Okay, so your first one is, if you could trade lives with a character for a day, who would it be and why?
Oh, I think it would have to be Brad Pitt because I just admire him so much. Life for a day and see what it's like being him.
If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Chocolate.
See, I'm not a real sweet person. I'm more of a crisp person, so that would be my little...
No, I love chocolate.
Next one is, if you could have a chat with one species of animal, what animal would that be?
Oh, a fox.
Ooh, why a fox?
Because that's my maiden name. So I would just love to have a combo with a fox.
Obviously, this podcast is online and you do a bit of TikTok. So what's the most
Yeah.
craziest or wildest thing you've seen on the internet lately?
Oh, my days. That's a tough one.
Because there's lots, I know.
Do you know what? One thing that this has like actually quite knocked me. So me being a parent, I've got a 15-year-old son. I've got a 30-year-old son, obviously, and Matthew, 21. And there's a man on there called Benji, and he's got a 14-year-old Down syndrome daughter. Craziest thing I've seen that literally springs to mind is someone commenting, saying that it was inappropriate for him to be online with his 14-year-old daughter. But you see parents with their children on TikTok all of the time. And people were actually asking him if, because she was giving him a cuddle and a kiss, because of that, people were questioning whether it was his girlfriend. He's 41, she's 14. Yeah, that blew my mind, that did. And his account actually got deactivated for 3 days because of it. And that is the craziest thing I've seen. So to prove a point, I actually did go upstairs and knock on my 50-year-old son's bedroom door while he was playing guitar and just said to him, can I have a kiss? And he leant over, gave me a kiss. Can I have a cuddle? And he leant back in and gave me a cuddle, just to prove a point. Because showing love to your kids or kids showing you love should not be seen in an inappropriate way.
Yeah, like you said, some people's minds, because I do a Doctor Who review with my daughter. She's 14, just to give her a bit of confidence about being online.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, you do worry because we're sitting next to each other, some idiot out there might sit there and say, hang on, why are you...
Yeah, but I think you've summed it up there, idiot.
No, exactly. Last one. If you used to write an autobiography, what would the title of your book be?
Oh, well, do you know what? I might well have one in the pipeline. Wow, what would I call it? I've wrote one chapter, and it's the first chapter, and literally it has come to a halt because I literally couldn't move past. But yeah, probably something along the lines of, you know, your life can change in an instant. Literally, it does. So I'd want it to grasp people and people to say, what happened to you? Why did your life change?
And so, like we said in the intro, you're on a mission and you've got a petition up about changing the law around duty of care. What happened for that to happen, and what's the aim behind the mission?
Right, okay. So I will start off by saying that I've got 78,800 and something odd signatures so far.
Congratulations.
So I am quite a way into the petition, but I still would literally like, you know, as many more as possible. So if people can stay tuned, that would be brilliant.
If people can see at the bottom of the screen where it says link down below, this is the reason why you're going to hear why. So once you've heard this story, please just click the link in the description and get it signed, everyone.
So my story is Matthew's story, but I'm being his voice because Matthew has now passed away. At the age of 21, he contracted meningitis, and I was actually away on holiday with my husband and my youngest son. This was on the 1st of April 2023. I was away and I received a phone call to say that Matthew was not very well. And I didn't know it at the time, but he wasn't very well. The people that were with him, because obviously he was staying with mates at the time, the people that were with him chose not to call the ambulance. The reason being because the mother in the flat where he was, it transpired a few weeks after that she actually had drugs in her property, and she did not want the ambulance to come to her house because she thought that it would result in the police then come in and the house being raided, etc., etc. So rather than doing what she should have done and ringing for an ambulance, she decided instead to let my son suffer for 2 days, which resulted obviously in him not having a chance to survive. So my petition is based around the duty of care law in the UK, because I found out obviously the hard way via speaking to CID, police, sergeants, inspectors, you name it. I've literally spoken to so many people, but there is no law to state that in the UK, if I come to your house, because I'm literally nobody to you, there is no law to state that you have to do anything to help me. You could literally sit there and watch me die and nothing would be done about it. Nothing.
And is that because he was an adult? Because obviously, if you heard of like a 14 or 13-year-old died in that situation, people would straight away be up more because there was a child in the house. Is that because of his age that there's no law around that?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what the cut-off age is, whether it be 16, 18, or whether it be 60, 80, 90. You know what I mean? If someone is in need of medical attention, why is there an age limit? Because a human is a human, no matter how old. And to know that Matthew was in that flat suffering for 2 days literally makes my stomach turn.
No, I bet. And can I just ask, and I don't want to ask this question, but because I've got to try and do the balance, and there's going to be people out there that's going to say he didn't feel well, why couldn't he sort himself out? Do you think he wasn't unaware that he was that ill? Or because I know when I got pneumonia, I felt like my wife literally had to ring the ambulance because she said my breathing went shallow, but I didn't realise I was that ill, and I ended up in hospital for nearly 5 weeks. By law, she didn't have to do that. That's what you're saying, yeah?
When it's maybe when it's husband wife, I don't know. I don't know, 100%, what the law covers, because I literally tried to read into this law so much. I tried to see whether it could be covered under negligence, gross negligence, manslaughter, even just manslaughter. When you actually go into all of the different, the 1, 2, 3, the ABCs, there is so many bullet points that literally mean that you can get done. Oh no, you can't get done, and then you can, then you can't. It's literally but there's, in my opinion, there should just be a law that says one human should help another human being, no matter where you are. because the duty of care law in the UK is covered by, if you're like a police, if you're a nurse, doctor, you know, teacher in your case,
Yeah.
you know, certain jobs do require you to have duty of care for the people. You know, if you're a manager even, you know, then you're obviously
Yeah.
you covered, you know, you have to make sure that all of your employers are okay. You know, so the duty of care laws do exist in the UK, but only for certain people and in
Yeah.
certain places. So if Matthew was to have felt ill and collapsed, you know, for example, like in Superdrug, his life probably would have been saved because the people in Superdrug would have had a duty of care to look after him. It's literally, it riles me how the government are the ones that decide who gets to have help, medical help, and who doesn't. And if you're covered under, you know, the government's guidelines of when you're covered by duty of care,
Yeah.
lucky you. But what about the unlucky ones? What about Matthew? What about the hundreds of other people that have literally had their lives destroyed? You know, and it's not just about passing away here. It's also talking about people suffering needlessly, whether it
Yeah.
results in death or not. If somebody is in need of medical attention, I think it should be made a law for, you know, if you're having a stroke, for example, you know, the adverts on the telly, it's like, you know, call 999, you know, FAR, you know,
Yeah.
FAST.
Face.
Time is critical when
Yeah.
somebody is in need. Um, and the government are doing, you know, loads of different things, you know, like, I don't know about your area, but we recently have had people come round to the local pubs, you know, with the stab parcels, you know,
Kids.
so if
Yeah.
someone's bleeding, you know, you put the you put this thing on them and it helps elongate the, you know, the survival rate. You know, if you're having a heart attack, it's critical. If you have a stroke, it's critical. And then you also have the not so common illnesses like meningitis,
Yeah.
where meningitis is sepsis. That's, you know, sepsis had literally spread into my son by the time. So there was a huge, let's say, argument in the apartment. Two of the people were under 18.
Right.
One of them was obviously the mother of one of them. It resulted in the two younger ones having to lock themselves in a bathroom because I have to be careful with who I say and what I say, but pretty much the phone was knocked out of one of the younger one's hands
Right.
with the comment that stated, and obviously I have it on good authority, that that person then stated, I am not having an ambulance in the house, I've got too much gear in here. And the phone was swiped from his hands. This resulted in them having to lock themselves in a bathroom to call my son an ambulance, but obviously by which time it was already too
Yeah.
late. Without going into too much detail, one of these, the younger ones, did ring me, and I heard Matthew in the background. And let's just say that that was the worst phone call I will ever have in my life.
From that point, then, because obviously you didn't know what's going to happen, but you're aware that. Do you carry guilt with you every day now?
No, no,
Good.
I don't. I don't.
Good.
I don't carry guilt. I find it upsetting that I didn't find out that he was so ill,
Yeah.
like for the 2 days. Like that's what upsets me. But do I have anything to feel guilty for? No, because I was on
No.
holiday with my youngest son. Um, you know, he was 21. You know, he's old. He was old enough to sort of, or not, look after himself. But Yeah, so all that was left of Matthew when I was trying to have a conversation was a constant groan and a hum. He had no life. No, he was unconscious and literally was just making noises. That's all I can say, really. That to me is more than a sign that that person is in need of medical attention. 100% without a doubt, Matthew was not in any fit state to call for an ambulance himself. And I'm sure that if Matthew was in any sort of state, he would have run for an ambulance. But anyone who's had meningitis, you know, or lost somebody to meningitis can tell, will tell you, meningitis, it does strike fast. Now I'm left with the fact that if that woman had not refused the two younger ones to ring an ambulance, would that ambulance have arrived in time, despite my local hospital flying a team in of specialists of 7 people from London? Because Matthew was so unwell, 7 people from King's flew to the hospital where my son was at. They tried several medical procedures on my son, but before I'd even had chance to jump on the plane, my son was put into a coma and I was told that my son was already brain dead. So I knew what the outcome was going to be when I landed.
I just can't imagine what was going through your mind. I'm so sorry to hear this, to be honest.
It literally, it does gut me every day. And what is frustrating for me is the fact that Matthew was a 21-year-old. And when you look at like the amount of celebrities, you know, influencers, etc., around that age, if he was one of those, literally, like you said, you know what I mean? When everybody hears this for the first time, they're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But I've literally had to make all this noise myself, just an ordinary mum from an ordinary town without a great following or celebrity status. You know, I'm not any kind of celebrity in any way, shape, or form. And I've literally, over the last 2 years, had to make this noise by myself. And
you're doing a cracking job.
that is that has been the hardest thing for me to do. And here I am, literally, you know, his anniversary was obviously on the 1st of April, and we're the 14th today. So literally, you know, 2 weeks ago, it was 2 years to the day. And I've had to literally struggle and fight for every single one of those signatures. And I think that it's about time that the government actually stood up and did something about this, rather than someone like myself who's literally trying to just grieve my boy. Instead, I'm having to, you know, stand up and literally tell everybody, get Matthew's story heard, because the main reason for me doing this, I don't want anyone else to suffer like I have. I don't care whether you're a parent, whether you're an auntie, an uncle, a niece, you know, a brother, a sister, whatever your loved one is, you should not lose that person because someone chose not to call for an ambulance. And if they do choose, like in Matthew's case, not to call for medical assistance, there should be punishment for that. There should be some sort of justice for the victim. You know, like I actually did refuse to call myself a victim, and I had a conversation the other week. And the reason why the word victim came up was because the police would have not, to this day, told me, despite the police being involved, because obviously, like Matthew's death, the house actually got raided after. So everything relating to the drugs got dealt with.
So the
And
thing that woman was trying to prevent by not
yes,
doing the right thing happened anyway. So
yes,
unfortunately, someone lost their life
yeah,
because she was being so silly for something that happened no matter what. It
yeah.
just, yeah, it doesn't make...
So obviously that just irritates me. But then
Yeah,
when it come to me wanting to know from the police, you know, the outcome of, you know, the raid, etc., they was like, you're not a victim, so we can't actually tell you. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I've lost my son
exactly.
because this woman had her drugs in the house that you found. It literally, it riles me so much. So yeah, literally, like, I'm just trying to make a noise. I
Yeah,
literally just need to make a noise, and I won't rest. And any devoted mother will literally, you know, feel me when I'm saying that, when a mother or a father, you know, but especially a mother, because we carry them for 9 months, you know, when a mother turns around and says, right, I'm going to do everything I can for my children, whether they are dead or alive, I will do everything for my children. And although Matthew was 21, he was my child, and
and
so I
then
will continue. And it is a passion, and it is literally my full-time job right now, to literally try and just get noticed, make a noise, get seen in any way, shape, or form. Like, if you know, if you go on my TikTok, some are funny, some are sad, some are, you know, motivational. I'm literally trying to do anything and everything just to get noticed, and I shouldn't have to be doing that. What I really
no,
want to be doing is, I just want to be living my normal life. I want to be able to carry on and be able to enjoy, like, my older son, my grandchildren, my husband, my other children, you know what I mean? Like my like, I just want to live a normal life. And I don't want the heaviness that is weighed on me every single day with having to make a noise. I just literally need someone to pick this up and go, right, do you know what, Sue, I'm going to help you. Like, I need people to listen, I need people to understand, and I need people to be stood behind me. You know, when I get to Downing Street or whenever, do you know what I mean? That is my dream. I literally want to be on the news, having them signatures and my story, my son's story, heard in Parliament to get this law changed.
and you've obviously spoken to like MPs and that already. Why this can't get looked into at the moment?
So my local MP at the time, when I spoke with him, he was actually really supportive. He completely understood where I was coming from. He understood my, you know, my frustrations behind the law, and he actually wrote to the Ministry of Justice for me.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Justice did get back to him, and despite them, you know, having a rundown of my son's story in a very long letter cut short, the very last paragraph stated, "We are so sorry about the loss of your son, but we are not planning on changing the law at this time."
This doesn't
And
make sense.
that's that. So what time is the government, you know, at what time are the government actually going to listen and realise that they are literally, like, not, should I say, allowing people to die? But, you know, their laws and legislations are literally allowing people to get away with people dying. I've, in the 2 years, actually been in contact with quite a few people. One of them, her family, it's the person who died was Kim. So that's another case, you know, that literally could have been covered by my law. When I've been out walking the streets, you know, trying to get petition signatures, they're like, oh my God, like, if that law was in place, such and such, this happened to. And I'm like, whoa. So this 79,000 people that I've spoken to, there are people within my petition that relate because they have been in similar circumstances. And I need these people to come forward, and I need them to literally, right, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
We need to do this.
And I think as well, sorry to interrupt, I think because until you mentioned it, it just seems like it's common sense. If someone dies in your property and you haven't done anything to raise the alarm, then there should seem like there should be some form of consequence. I think people are actually aware that it's not a law. It seems such a common sense thing that if something happens in someone's property and it's investigated and it's found that you haven't done all you can to help that person, then there should be a consequence.
Yeah.
But so I think by you speaking about it, and hopefully this will get other people to speak about their stories, I think, like you said, it's just to get the awareness. I don't think actually people realise this is an actual thing. I didn't until we got in contact.
Yeah. And can I just say, obviously, like the police actually stated, I actually asked the police the question and said, if Matthew had actually died in their property, would it be different? The answer was no. It is so wrong. And then another thing that the police said to me is, although what they've done is morally disgustingly wrong, lawfully, they haven't broke a law. And that is disgusting. What is this government coming to if that is the kind of thing that they are okay with?
Oh, like, this woman sounds horrific as it is, but the simple fact that 218-year-olds were trying to do the right thing, and as a parent, she stopped them doing that. Like that doesn't make sense to me either. Like, so even that in my head, there should be some form of consequence, because I know, like you said, everything got dealt with on the drug side of things, but the fact, as a parent, she's stopping 218-year-olds trying to do the right thing, it doesn't comprehend to me.
I mean, one of the under 18s was her daughter.
Right.
So, you know, but even that didn't make a difference.
No.
So,
which don't make sense either.
It literally, nothing makes sense. Nothing. And you know, I've not actually brought myself to actually speak to the two younger ones since Matthew's death. I can't do it because there's always 101 questions thinking, well, why did they not ring sooner? Why did they not just walk out the house and ring? You know, she didn't need to know. They could have literally done, you know, X, Y, and Z. They're the sort of questions that run around my head all the time, because the way that I heard Matthew literally was enough for me to say, why has the ambulance just been called? And without going into too much detail, do you know what I mean? But he had soiled himself, and that woman had taken it upon herself to undress my boy, get him changed into clean stuff. So if my son was incapable of undressing himself and getting himself dressed because he'd soiled himself, that to me, without a shadow of a doubt, says that that person is not very well. Get them.
And they need help. And I hope why people's listening, like I said, the links in the description, please just get on. It's just 30 seconds of your time to fill out a form, but your signature will help soon be able to get a voice to where it needs to get to, and hopefully wake some people up to do the right thing and get this law changed. Any
like celebrities that have suffered with meningitis, you know, or any just influencers, you know, anyone with huge following, if there is anybody out there that can literally help me by talking about Matthew and literally getting this out there, I really would appreciate it, because little old me from where I live is just little old me, and I literally need the big, like some people call them blue ticks, don't they? Like the blue ticks, like, you know, I need these verified people to literally be on board with me and start making a noise for me, with me, support me, back me up, you know, help me get to the point where every human should help another human being. It's not that bigger deal.
What type of young man was Matthew?
Do you know what? Yesterday I was scrolling through my Facebook memories and he got an A+ merit in construction at school.
Wow.
And so obviously I shouted about it all over Facebook, congratulating him. So he was talented around that field. He was extremely talented around computer programming, computer science. He loved all that kind of thing. It went way over my head.
Yeah, mine
As you
too,
can
it'd go
see,
over.
so this is him. A better look. He was a good-looking lad. He was tall, the bestest blue eyes, and the most comical laugh that literally no one has ever been able to copy. His laugh was unique. It was just like it literally makes me smile when I think about his cheeky grin. But he was happy with nothing. And I always bring my kids up. I don't want your money. I don't want your gifts. I'm happy. You know, Mother's Day, for example, if you even got a piece of toilet roll and just put love your mum
Exactly,
and
yeah.
dad. And you know what? He has. And in little tins across the Mother's Days and whatever, I have got little pieces of tissue which just says love your mum with few kisses and that on it, you know. That's the type of boy that Matthew was. He wouldn't come at me with money stuff. He would come at me with love because I gave it, he received it, and it was given in return. And one day at my nephew's wedding, actually it was recorded and it's the most precious video that I will ever have now. It was recorded with him literally having a dance with his mum, and him saying to me, "Mum, I'm so proud of you. You've done such a good job of bringing me up." And that touched my heart. He was so grateful for everything that he had. He was, yeah, not being biased, but he was amazing.
And yeah, and I'm sure he'd still be proud now because even though unfortunately he's not here, you're still trying to get justice for him. And I think you should be really proud of yourself. And I know it's probably a hard battle, but you're doing something and you're doing what every mum does. You're fighting for your child, and you should be so proud of yourself. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story on here. And I hope just someone, as you said, just listens and gets you the help you need. Like I said, the link to the petition is in the description below. The way to contact Sue on TikTok and stuff will be in the description below. I just want to say thank you again for your time and thank you for sharing. And hopefully, if there's anything else we can do, please just reach out and let us know.
Yeah, I appreciate you listening. Yeah, and giving me the time to actually talk about him. And yeah, I appreciate you allowing me to come on your podcasts. Thank you, Lee.